Good evening, everybody. How was your day?
Good day.
Good day? Everybody good day?
Not over that.
How about Mark? You have a good day?
Yeah.
Good day. Also, we are very good smile. Skunk. Yeah, it's strong.
Must be right outside.
Right underneath us.
It could be.
But you don't like my new perfume?
Usually the skunk, the smile is his protection. You know, when he has something scared, then he, you know, put that head. This is also his karma. To maybe some people like his smile. I don't know. Most people don't know. Usually the people are very annoying, they smile and they share. This is also their karma. You know, maybe their previous life sometimes they make very unclean, dirty some holy objects, some then they create the karma too. They are born also very get smile for himself, for your side. Therefore, this is also karma. Then I don't know, I like to the gas smile. You know, with the car.
No.
I like this smile very much.
In the winter.
Some people, you know, I love the smile. Some people with the smile they make to throw up. You know, the people are different. You know. Anyway, just enjoy the smile for the skunk. You know, we also bring that and we say from, you know, me and all the sensibilities, not never ever done same as skunks in a life. Or, you know, because everybody hit, we don't need everybody hit, you know, everybody don't like to skunk, they say, oh, take it personally. We like to, we want to everybody to like for us. You know, therefore we don't want to anybody hit for us. Therefore we have to get the karma. Anyway, then Buddhism always we talk about very important to motivation. Then all the sensibilities, same as us, they wish to free from sufferings. They wish to happy life. All do the same. Then all this also become happy and free from suffering. In order to that, then also we wish to help for them, like that. But right now we don't have the power, right? Even if we don't have power for our friends to be happy. All sensitive is just for God. We cannot make we don't have ability to make happy for our, you know, relatives, co-workers, neighbors. But because we are not able to that, because we doesn't know exactly the others' mind, others, you know, the reality, what they want, what they don't want. We think whatever we say, whatever we show is right, but they goes to other person, go to wrong direction. They shows we don't know how you make that. Therefore, now who has the ability to make all sensibilities to free from suffering and be happy, then Buddha, he has the ability to, you know, that kind of power. He has the power means he knows what can we do, what cannot we do. He knows like that. Therefore, in order to benefit all sensibilities, we need to keep alignment. We need to know all the sentient beings wishes, all the sentient beings goals. Then we teach or we lead for them to right direction. Therefore, the main point or what? Main point is benefit all sentient beings. Therefore, I'm going to study Dharma, meditation Dharma. I teach Dharma. Whenever you do things, that motivation is important. Usually, I think our actions, good action or bad action, depends motivation, right? For example, the family, the parents have the kids, maybe under teenagers. The parents have a very strong love, loving kindness for the kids. This is also related to attachment, not complete, and loving kindness, but is related. The wearing the attachment, then attachment's skin, the inside the compassion, loving. That can't always mom or dad died, was it? Mom and daddy. Daddy is correct. Mom and father, mother, maybe better. They always think about the kids. When they, sleeping, going, walking, even though go to job, they think about the kids. How can we, make for them to really good education, good kids, and successful kids. Always they're thinking. Maybe teenagers maybe a little bit less. If they make some trouble, then the parents are a little bit really angry. Before sometimes they're angry, but the real tip man, they doesn't get angry. Kids do something wrong, then the parents have a very strong passion, motivation, passion, showing that angry to kids with some, bring back to something wrong direction. You say, do the homework, a little bit harsh work, maybe a little bit, what we call rough or fast. The motivation is to benefit the kids. Not angry, right? Exactly. They're not, I don't know, you guys really parents, I'm not idea, I think like that. When kids maybe, when they're born, maybe a couple months, their parents doesn't get sleep. Even they sleep that. When kids have a little bit something hurt, they, wake up. Usually if it doesn't wake up, then we put very loud alarm. What's the alarm? How you say? Alarm. But suddenly we don't get, wake up. The kids, parents, very, very easy to wake up. They shows they're always thinking of parents, kids. The motivation. Therefore, motivation is very good. They never harm. Sometimes, I'm not saying 100%, some parents may like that. They do harm the most, maybe 99% the parents never ever really they're going to harm the kids. In this country, we don't do that. In Tibetan, India, in Asia country, I don't know, Tibetan, they beat the kids. When my father sometimes he threw up some big rocks. Kids, because we're very fast. Parents want to beat them, we're very fast, we run away. Then whatever they're fast, they just throw away. But the motivations, very good. They don't, what we call it, very harm, very hurt for us. And also, even like that, then now we have to also, any things, if you do practice, if you do walk, if you talk some person, also depends on your motivation, very important. Sometimes you have very, very good motivation, you talk someone, but the other person maybe don't understand, they misunderstand. But also you can fix it very easy. If your motivation is very bad, if you talk very nice, the results maybe not directly come to bad, but they will come later, very, very bad. There was one king in India. He has a couple workers, One worker, he thought his mind is he want to take his king's seat, but he thought he looks very love his king. He thought he looks very happy, helping, very nice words from him. And outside he thought to me, he come down, how is that? Go down, step down, like that. Then first, very words very nice, the motivation very bad. Then slowly, then the king understand, he know whatever he's doing. Then he finally lost his life. Then the bed was another worker, Mister. Like that, motivation is very important. Sometimes we get angry, we can just say words, but not to keep the very angry mind or out is very important. When you get today one person a bit angry, then you keep this more. Why he or she said me that, or whatever she did, then you meditation this again and again, then you make more. Then you more angry, then how makes you angry, then we are not happy, right? Therefore, main thing is whatever you do, motivation is very important. If your motivation is very good, maybe you can fight a little bit. It's maybe not bad. Your motivation is very good. But if your motivation is very good, then we never fight, right? So, because you think benefit for them, then you can fight. But we cannot fight like that. Shambada nijiga kanana kumbro sana, ani jana da ko jibal mo mares. Shambada nijiga kanana.
So if you do anything with the motivation of love or compassion, then whatever you do will not become a non-virtuous action. So even if you are fighting with love and compassion, then that fight will not become a non-virtuous action. But that's not going to happen, right? So if it were to happen, if you were to fight with loving kindness and compassion, then that will not become non-virtuous action. But fighting will not happen if you have love and compassion, right? So when parents are scolding the child or beating them, it's doing out of compassion and love, and so it doesn't really become non-virtuous action, because the parents are doing it to benefit the child. So the parents are not giving up the child, right? Giving up on the child. And so that is the kind of feeling we should try to develop towards all sentient beings, because all sentient beings are same as oneself, not wanting any sufferings and always wanting happiness. So is there any one sentient beings that you can find or point and say that this is one sentient being different from others in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering?
We don't find, right? Even you go to Google, maybe you don't find. We will try, okay? But today you buy that. 다 가지고 지금은 된지게 semche 탐지라 대화도 누가 먼저 진통하다 다 semche 다 대화되는 점으로 님 로지다 누가들은 점으로 님 로지 깨터와 있나 아니 나라서 질라 단다 내차 시동 공투 차도지 영원히 되는 것도 semma 맞죠 대단히 용 맞았어.
So if we can have that kind of the thought towards all sentient beings, wishing them to be happy all the time and wishing them to be free from suffering all the time, then that kind of hatred or anger and jealousy towards sentient beings will never happen. And so if we were able to generate that kind of genuine mind, of loving kindness and compassion, then that is 100% sure that we will not have that negative thought towards others.
이나 다 가서지 다 샴바고 니제 고메 그래서 간제 샘제도 저 대화도 듣나 저 대버지 대버 다크셔 때문에 sommo 따서 대라 샴바고 그래서
And so wishing others to be happy and thinking that how wonderful it would be if that others are happy, may they be happy. I myself will take the responsibility upon, take the responsibility to make them happy. So you have to have that kind of thought. That's called love.
다 가서 야고대 공통해 이제 가려서는 빼차차고나 다 들이 단나가서 돼 뭐지야. 아니 다시 한번 이제 가는 공장이 하지. 아니 며칠이라도 그게 깨쳐보자 나가서 어떻게 공부사 그랬어.
And so our love and we try to meditate, we try to meditate on loving kindness and compassion. But our meditation on loving kindness and compassion is very weak. It is supposed to not have hatred towards others. But like say if we are meditating on loving kindness in this room, and if somebody were to make a noise outside there, then we'll become angry immediately.
Right? Someone right?
That's right.
I'm going to meditate. Why you guys doing that? Right? This shows our meditation is very weak. Our practice is very weak. We are not. We say all something is happy, all something is free from happy. We say the words again and again, but our mind doesn't think of real sin is that. They shows very easily, The one story, the one person do meditation, then one person comes and, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing meditation. Maybe he's very serious, look at that. Then I said, what are you doing? I'm doing meditation. So maybe this other person maybe doesn't know it. So he, what are you doing? I'm doing meditation. That shows, meditation, purpose of meditation is what? Subdued our angry minds. But very easy for our mind or for us to. Because our dear friend very love for us. Attachment, angry, jealous, hatred, they very love us. Hatred, angry, they always protection us. If someone's coming to hurt us, they immediately come. The attachment love us. He said, oh, you need that, you need that, you need that. He's bringing to anything for us. And jealous is like that. Just jealous say, oh, someone's better than you. You have to do better than you have to do better. He always look at us for protect for us. But they all bring for us too more suffering. Harm. 내적 가지죠. 저도 가지죠. 세나 가지죠. 뒤에서 이미들 강이 모아요.
So bigger the negative emotions in our mind, like more attachment we have, or more jealousy we have, more anger we have, that much more trouble we'll be facing that much more problems.
근데 말이다. 다 가는 소치 아니 가리 제와이나. 나도 소소 대원 되고요나. 아니 소소기나 샴바다 니제에서 공부하고 그랬어. 되게 좀 그래.
So if we wish to have happiness for ourselves, then it is important to increase loving kindness and compassion in our mind.
그래? 아니 소소 샘체 강가라야. 대화도 되는데 두마도 되는데 야보지와나. 아니 너도 코로스가 누워서. 저도 계속 누워서.
So if you have loving kindness and compassion, towards others, if you're really like strong and genuine loving kindness and compassion towards others, then there's no place for you to be angry, for you to be jealous with others, right?
그래서 가서 다소도 직접 전해서 그다음에 상대랑 가다도 소랑도 다 계획적이고 그래서 아니 근데 샘체라야 다 유주 소소로 진 도와주면 대란 저도 멤버지나 대란 갑대죠. 쇼바지나 대래 소소로 멤버지나 아니 대란 많이 유주셔야 되는 거 정도 왔어.
So we worship, we pay, respect, we worship to the gods and to the Buddhas, but we look down on sentient beings. Like if the sentient beings are equal to ourselves, we have this thought of competitiveness. I want to be better than that person. I think of that kind of thought or feeling of competitiveness. And if the person is inferior or lower than oneself, then we look down on them. And if they are higher or superior than oneself, then we have jealousy towards them.
근데 용사대용 소소 고용되나 용 못들라. 저런 거 봤어.
So that kind of negative emotion we have towards sentient beings are the ones who are close to ourselves, right?
근데 다 근데 용도 가려 나도 가디나 지 근데 잠으로 가려나 가디나 나 사람들 다 되게 좀 해서 좀
And why we have this problem, is because of always thinking of oneself.
아니 빠데 다와 저배야 아니 오마지보다 교수로 더 담보 맛이 달라지네 담보 가서 지금 가서 근데 뇌에서 지금 그래서 담보 맛이 달라 나 근데 신경하죠 나 근데 뇌 지지 되지네 다 대라 아니 다 잡아지네 다 저천 저거는 봐 담보 맛이 달라지죠 나 근데 신경하죠 저천 저천 나오는 거다 간지 대게 들이 잡아 대가 왕기 다 하는 거기서 거기에 들어가라 나오는 거 참되게 그랬으라고 그랬어
And so this is what Chandakirti said in his text known as engaging in the middle way. So first we generate this thought of I, thinking I all the time, and then after that comes mine. So I and then mine, my people, my friend, my possession, my relatives and so forth, my family and so forth. So and then from the I comes the mine, and then with these two. Then you generate attachment, anger. So you have attachment towards your mind, and then anger towards those who cause harm to mind, and so forth. And because of that, and then then we circle in cycle existent, endlessly.
What did you 맞아? 다 semche 관계 때문에 샴바도 이제 제대로지나 다 나한테 나가래. 또 수치만 이용하죠.
And so if you have a strong compassion and love towards others, then you will not have that kind of strong grasping at the self.
근데 이제 다 만족하는 나나 산데게 상지 좀 된데서야 돼. 지금 포마도 마세요. 지금 잠배야 상태. 누구 가디나 다 지연 생각도 나. 좀 제대로.
So we are always thinking about oneself, whereas the Buddhas like Buddha Shakyamuni, Menjushi, Tara, they're always thinking about others.
근데 이제 안에 쇼주 친구나 저도 친구 시바나서 마음도 시비 지시고 시바는 거 돈제다. 도와주니 돈제가 되니지는 저렇게 여기서 다 먹으시고 말했어. 아니 시와 나도 시와고 가디나 랑가 텐서는 담으려고 장자래도 왔어. 사실 좀 된 데서가 더와 된주가 가디나 연지 되는데 근데 다 되니지 저렇게 따다 저는 못 다서
And that's why Shantideva said in his guide to the Buddhist way of life, he said, what need is there to say? The difference of the see the difference of the childish, which is the sentient beings, which refer to sentient beings, and the evil one, is the enlightened beings. So see the difference. So since childish or sentient beings are suffering because of thinking of oneself all the time, and the Buddhas are free from all the sufferings because of working for the benefit of others all the time.
뭐 되는 다때 이름에 따라서 따제 제고 또 사실 좀 전에 그 송. 아니 저걸 변하다. 아니 그럼 이제 좀 쇼할 수 있는 그래서 와.
And so these quotations, the verses that are written or explained by these great scholars, and so we don't have to just believe just because they said it, but we can also investigate ourselves, whether it's really true or not.
아무튼 적대라야 지금 샤워 가르쳐 봐야 나 지금. 딱 가르치면 대인비 진선 그다 류다 리바도 강강하면서 답변아. 나랍다 친구들 나야 좀 자고 저기도 왔어.
And so that itself, because it's written, because it's explained, because it's written by great scholars, well-known scholars, like Shantideva, therefore you can accept that, right? So just like in the colleges or universities, when somebody compose some text, then they quote from such and such scholar, right? And because they quote from that, then other people also believe that, oh, it's like that because there's a quotation from such and such scholar.
근데 이마다 딱 그디 이마다 딱 나도 소소소소라 가위나 샴바도 이제서 그때 공부를 했어.
So if we really want to be happy and we love ourselves, then we should develop love and compassion. compassion towards others.
다들까지 고도는 모두 내라고 까니 거우시라면도 와서 담보다 하나 대화도 나서 대내다 내 지금 인연인데도 대내지 봐든 갈래가 봐봐 대내도 담보 소소는 곳을 봐봐 정말 다 상당히 그래서 와
And so, of course, it has to start from oneself first, and so loving oneself, and then loving one's families, one's friends, one's neighbors, and then start like that. And then you expand your love further and towards all sentient beings.
나도 차상 강가 피를 가게 자자로 왔어 피를 가게 줘요 말 왔어
We all like peace, right? No one is there who doesn't like peace, right?
피를 그거한테 피를 담보 소소한 곳을 그러면서 저놈이 피를 주세요 말했어
So if we like peace, then we have to start the peace from one side, from oneself. So that's how we start. In other words, there's no peace coming from outside.
example one family peace family I don't know peace family we say we don't say peace family right? What do you say
Peaceful?
peaceful family husband wife not always fighting if husband or wife is always fighting if their kids also copy that when they become grown up they also have problem not like that husband and wife also very peaceful and of course sometimes we are not Buddha sometimes problem we cannot accept each other's idea action but one get unhappy or friendly, then other one just calm down, try to patient. Then other one gets some angry, something, then other one will be patient. Then no problem. If one partner says something, then other ones also say immediately back, then more together, then together to then talk, then big fire. Therefore, not like that, everybody know each other's, how call it. Respect also each other. Believe each other. Trust each other. Trust is very important, people. If you don't trust people, then you always worry, for what they do. You don't trust people. Therefore, if you trust people, then people can trust them for you. If you didn't trust, then they don't want to trust for you. Anyway, trust each other. If something is a little bit annoying, then the other one will calm down, try to just quiet. Then if it's really going to wrong, then after he or she calm down, then we can explain, you said this, you did that, this is not correct, right? He said, it's not correct, right? And he's right. Then doesn't get nice word, that doesn't get angry. Then you very peaceful family. Then also you try to just look for neighbors. Talk each other. Usually this country is very funny, culture. The neighbors, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, they together, but they don't talk each other. They don't know each other, It's different culture, but then, very difficult also. Then relationship, the neighbors. Because neighbors always together. Then, they doesn't, what do you call it, friend each other, then very easy to get angry. Therefore, try to each other a little bit, understand a little bit, accept a little bit problems. Then your neighbors very friendly, then a little bit far, then country, then they what they can go. Otherwise they say, peace, we need peace. From us do something, then we get immediately angry, then peace never happens. Therefore, anyway, if everybody likes peace, first we start to
So we should try to develop loving kindness and compassion towards all sentient beings.
아니 삼자들 대화는 되나 주모를 되면 제시 대마 다크자는 삼바 대 주보라 삼네 근데 까마까지 있고 아니 삼자들 누가 나타나 주모를 아니 잡아 지지 잡아 다크자는 되는 삼는 삼네 까마까지 가지 되고 그래서
So just like just as when we recite the four immeasurable prayers, so we should develop that thought in our mind also. and thinking that may all sentient beings be free from suffering. How wonderful it would be if they are free from sufferings. I myself will make them free from suffering. So thinking like that, and you should put your mind on that thought for several minutes, and then do the same thing with the love. May all sentient beings be happy. How wonderful it would be if they are all happy. I myself will make them happy, and so forth. So thinking like that, putting your mind on that thought for a couple of minutes. And so when we recite those four imaginary prayers, we should meditate as well.
And slowly. Right now we are not used to it, but slowly, you know. And we always say all sentient beings free from, what do you call it? All sentient beings are happy and causes happy. That's good. It causes that. But when we recite this chanting, maybe some sentient beings come into little bit, then we can immediately agree with that. We say, what's right? You know? They shows me now, we just say the words, but not thinking our mind. There was, you know, surely there was a common law on the either
So if you are familiar with that, then it becomes easier. So there isn't anything that doesn't become easier with familiarity.
what is the name by the or Kadina, and Shambada Nijis at this come take it to
So always try to meditate on loving kindness and compassion. I think that is very important.
that patient, not the patient man. They going to touch Tawachimbo or Lojong, touch on Jim Yamne, never chimores.
So we're going to discuss about this text, the Wheel of Sharp Weapon. This is about teaching about training the mind according to the methods or teachings of the Mahayana vehicle.
한 얘기 지금도 지금 레드로 걸어야 거야고 참여가 있나? 회사 된 것으로 딱 메모시라고 말했어.
So if we don't have some understanding about karmic law, cause and effect, then this will not be very pleasant to hear.
근데 회사 얘기 가르나 그러나 가르쳐는 대체가 농촌 장전하고 그랬어.
So what it is saying here is whatever bad thing happens to you is all because of yourself.
그래도
It's
나도
because of
가르나.
your own fault.
나도 가르마다. 나도 가르는 캐는 말고.
But we are the opposite, right? We always try to blame on others. So we don't accept that it's our fault that we are suffering.
근데 다 니나라 지금 먼저 medaya 동아라 리지 동아 생비 동아 니어스 누야스.
And so the sufferings that we don't want, there are two kinds, the physical sufferings and mental sufferings.
다 리지 동아 수다 어떻게 동아 근데 다 딘데기 다 가서 리지 동아 가는 건데 다 쉬자 이들어.
So in verse 10, we talked about the sufferings of the physical sufferings like sickness and so forth.
근데 다뒤 가려고 나 간지 수수이 내라 지금 근데 나사도 저는 되게 쉬울 까봐야 아니 다 나라 근데 나사도 저 총수 나라 담발을 총수 수수 세마 컴대요 말이스 아니 대 수수 기왕 남마가 sem지 준비 내라 너와 지금 레버에 봐서 다뒤 내가 수수 먹게 그래 뒤 까봐야 다 선물 갖다 다내 나라는 제정이 레버에 이게 제가 다 나도 있지 sem지 나도 나도 sem지나 누가 강아 이거 리게 누가 강아 이거 나랑 디 강아 막 오네 다 매바치 이사비 something 다 수수 acceptable.
And so what is said in that verse number 10 is that when we experience physical suffering such as sickness and so forth in our body, then at that time we should not feel down or sad, thinking why I'm sick and so forth. Rather, we should think that whatever experience that I'm having in the form of this sickness and so forth is because of my own native karma. Of causing harm to others' body before, and so now I'm experiencing this suffering as a result of those native karmas that I've created by causing harm to others' body. And so one should one should accept that by thinking that this is the result of that native karma. And on top of that, also one can think of relieving others from their suffering, of their physical sufferings, by imagining, taking those sufferings upon oneself. So just as one experiences this suffering upon oneself, then also imagine that one is experiencing on behalf of all sentient beings, and they are all free from their sufferings. Because I'm taking all their sufferings, and now they're all free from their sufferings. We should think like that, and that way, one can purify a great amount of negative karmas in such a short time by thinking like that.
Teresa ta tela kaza tonen kom teresa tikabla ya ani somo til tango ta de tonen kom ko tikabla tonen kom shin.
And so at that time, then you can also meditate on the practice is called taking and giving, where you take the sufferings of others upon yourself and imagine giving your happinesses to others.
O teresa ta teri kangi shumi kabla ya manju chi semje jala phat dunga ani marap chedi newa jo kari ngara so ran chin de tigi jang chini ta chiwai bare wa.
And so whatever sufferings that we're experiencing is all because of negative karmas that we have created based on the self-chasing attitude. So out of self-chasing attitude, we have caused harm to others, and now because of that, now we are experiencing these physical sufferings upon ourselves.
O teresa ta teri kabla ya chi suju chi tonen kom kabla kani kom ko se wa na. Ani chi suju ta tambo chi semde chi suju lo ndo de ne. Ta chi 수술한 나타나고 있나 내단 내려면 나서 semchi 관리제 여봐야 돼요. 대다 되게 나사도 차선으로 지 수술 너 예역하나 지금 나가다 수급 되네. 이 뒤가로 나서도 차선으로 수술 가능지. 랭게 무슨 당고 그래서 랭이 샤마저지 랭이 수술 나사다도 저 수술이랑 나즈에 나즈 디칸 많이 룽네. 아니 차선 매와 차선으로 수술 삼아 당고 그래서
And so at this point, you can meditate on taking and giving. So imagine taking the sufferings of others and giving one's happiness to others. So when you imagine taking the sufferings of others, and so just as one is going through that suffering, that sickness, that disease that one has, imagine all the other sentient beings who are going through similar kind of suffering, who are experiencing similar kind of sufferings of that sickness or diseases. Imagine taking all those sickness and diseases upon oneself. So imagine inhaling all the sufferings in the form of a black smoke, all these diseases and all the sicknesses from other sentient beings, and come in a form of black smoke, and then you inhale that through your right nostril, left nostril, and then it goes into your system at your heart. There is this very strong, solid self-chasing attitude, and all these sufferings is poured down on that, and then thereby all these sufferings disperse, and it destroys that self-chasing attitude. Also at the same time, you can think like that. And so with that, it disperses or destroys or disappears all the sufferings, all the negative karmas, all the sufferings of all sentient beings and oneself. And so, so because you have destroyed all these sufferings and negative karmas, the cause of the sufferings, and therefore feel happy, rejoice in thinking that you have destroyed all these sufferings.
되게 대외가 냥 수술이 되어가지고 되게 대외 냠대냐 저 월감을 남아로 오잖아요. 뭐 파도. 근데요 심지 처음에 파차네. 아니 심지 관계지 누가 저거 매수를 양산나 가고 그래서.
And so that happiness, that you feel, that happiness, imagine that happiness in the form of a white light or white cloud or white smoke or white light, and then that you send out from your left or right nostril. And that pervades towards all sentient beings, and because because of receiving that, now they all feel very happy also. And so this is a practice of taking and giving upon a breath. So that's very, very, very beneficial. So you imagine taking the sufferings of others. What will happen if you really were to get all those sufferings? So if you have that kind of fear, if you experience, if you feel afraid, thinking that what will happen if you really get it, and then that's a good sign actually.
이제 티가래 오늘 알았더니 나세대 죽지물 로를 제니 딱 가져야 돼. 문 세메 티가. 아니 배편도 없어요. 누스로.
And so at that time, that the fear that you have, right? Fear, thinking, what will happen to me? What will happen to me? What will happen to me if I will really take all these sufferings? So if all these sufferings will really come on me, what will happen to me? The me, the I. And you have a very strong, vivid, strong, I, right? So that is the object of negation. So there's no such kind of I, but we have that grasping at such an I, right? Such I. And so that is the object of negation that you have to recognize.
된게 대고이 대가분 나슈지 말아 되는 다시지. 야, 되는 말이 가와도. 다 고라도 강바도 도와나지도 강바도 도. 니 가와도 수지 따나 아니 산 니 말이었어.
And so that I, so then you have to first catch that I, right? So you should be able to catch the I. That's the object of negation. So that you have to catch that I. And then investigate upon that I. And so the I that is so afraid, of afraid of taking the sufferings of others, right? The I that is afraid and thinking that what happens if I were to really experience all those sufferings of others, all things. That I. So where is that I? So then you investigate upon that I. Where is such kind of I? Is it in the head? Is it in the body? Is it in the leg? Where is it?
No, usually we don't think about it. We say, Deborah, she's that. Really we think of Deborah where? Her body is Deborah, her hair is bad Deborah, her hand is Deborah, her heart is Deborah. No, right? He said, she said, my head, my body, we don't say my, right? My clothes, same, my cups not me, same our body is not us, our mind is not us, right? This is, we just think this is correct, right? What do you think? It's true or not? Right? If you can go to find, check the, we say, oh, it's I don't like that, I need that, I don't want that. That kind of I is where? Who? Which one? Can we identify real go to that? That time we have to check. This I is just 딱 동네 따서 이봐. 근데 로 샤서 했나? 아니 가서 담배. 딱 롱을 샤네. 딱 근데 대는 양마 샤네. 딱 근데 다 대화로 여기. 딱 남마 쉬어먹을 해서 와.
And so if you were to find that that kind of I at that time, is merely imputed by your mind. There's no I from its own side. It's merely imputed by your mind, and then that will, through that then you'll be able to understand the selflessness, the selflessness of the person, and then that way, and you'll be able to create the cause for happiness from life to life.
어들이다 자들지 뭐 시발이다 다그 대화다 제지도 지오자도 그래서 근데 지오 맞잖아 아니 산지도 그래 산지 맞으면 고발을 대화요 말해서
and so that's why Shantideva said we have to exchange that kind of those two, the sufferings of others and happiness of oneself. And so as long as we're not able to do that, we'll not be able to generate bodhicitta. And will not be able to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so if we don't achieve enlightenment, then we'll be in cyclic existence. If we're in cyclic existence, then there's no real happiness here. And so here now in the samsara, in cyclic existence, we are always tormented by the three kinds of sufferings without any break.
We have break? We don't have break. When we have suffering, three sufferings. Suffering, change.
All progressive suffering.
Suffering, three. 그래서 다 둥아지 다 나서 거나 강반나야 나반나야 지금 나도 무슨 더해도 내가 둥아지.
So suffering is the suffering that we recognize as suffering, such as headache, pain, the knee aches or the leg ache and so forth.
남중에서 지나도 we have to check, 달래나. That kind we can recognize, even some animals also recognize that, the suffering. The suffering will change, we don't know if it's suffering or not. You know, when we first you guys come to here, you all sit down, you're comfortable. So it's comfortable. Then a couple of minutes is so too much. Then you have to like try that. Then maybe you sit on the chair or say too much. Then sit. Then you maybe legs also cold. No, yeah. No, first you guys come outside, a little bit cold, come inside, a little more comfortable. Stay a little bit more, too hot. Then we become soften. Because soften change. We think this is come inside, it's very nice feeling. But Buddha says it's soften because they're not stay. Couple minutes, couple hours, they become change. We don't recognize this is softening or not. Softening means,
So anything you don't like is suffering.
right? What is that?
So there's no break from that, right?
Jadi chaba desi duma se ta na to sa che nyene ji phombo de nyane lo de ta de no to du sang ko mares kale kaushra yes.
So even the suffering of change, which is difficult for us to understand as suffering, and so we have that all the time. We have that all the time. So we are never free from that suffering. And then all pervasive suffering is even worse, right? So that is all the time there. So as long as we have this contaminated aggregate that came from our karma and delusion, and then as long as we have that, we have the all pervasive suffering.
그래서 된지 duma 다 문제가 용도 와서 된지 다 그래 가지고 로또나 이와 나도 짜지 되게 부딪히 머리 넘게 맞춰 그네. duma 된지 지금 그래. 나도 짜지 되게 부딪히 머리 넘게 맞춰 그네. duma 된지 말이야. 다 지금 뭐 지금 들어. 내가 들어지는 말 아니 생태 단다 아니 지금 뭐시기 요소는 여러 와서 나도 저기 저기서 나도 다다 나가산디 볼라데 트데레스 데다 도게만 말하면 맞는데 도게메레스 근데 대면 다 등하스미 지시면 반내데레스 와 아니 들리는 싸움네 다 심지도 줄 텐데 아니 샘피고 그래 다 잡아지고 이제 제고 그래서
So just like it is said in the Three Principles Ascended Path, that we are caught in the net of the self-grasping, self-grasping ignorance, and then we are wrapped by the ignorance by the cloud of the ignorance, and then we are born in cycle existence, endlessly in the cycle existence. So by thinking about oneself and all sentient beings in such a situation, such condition, and tormented by the three kinds of sufferings all the time, and then by thinking about the situations of the all sentient beings like that, then we should develop a strong mind of enlightenment of bodhicitta to free them all from sufferings.
아니 제대로 못 쳐봐래. 이제 대화 진행봐 대근 현대 되죠. 이제 동아 진행봐 대근 다대 되죠. 사실 말해서.
And also said that all the sufferings that we have in this world is all from wishing oneself to be happy. Comes all from wishing oneself to be happy, and all the happiness that there is in this world is comes from wishing others to be happy.
Okay, now because we're talking about the text also, we didn't go to text. Anyway, this is very important to also share the text, the power of these things. Also, when he said, "Today, teaching was," and the Sanjay da Semchini, and the Sanjay Sanjay Komotowa watching Chipares, San Java Nanda Semchini, Sanjay Komotowa watching Chipares. 이나 사제라 기접지 삼제라 기접지 와서 가이나 도와드리지 그래서.
So also Shantideva said that sentient beings and sentient beings and enlightened beings are equal in supporting us in helping us to become enlightened. So we have to depend on sentient beings as much as we depend on enlightened being for ourselves to be enlightened. And then he said, whose system is it to pay respect to only the enlightened beings, but not to the sentient beings?
오케이. 다듯이 다 쇼로가 지지받아 예스. 단단하다. 간지 소주 릴라 믿으면 나사 동아치고도 같이는 소리 깨와 남마지다 수주가 선제적이 릴라 나. 아니 딱 내가 지금 저거 소리다. 멘토 되나 그래서.
And so in the verse number 10, it's talking about all the physical suffering that we're experiencing is the result of the negative karma that we have caused by injuring or by causing harm to others' body.
다 지지받아 다들 샘 나도 동아라 레지 동아라 샘 동아 다들 샘 동아 소리로.
And then in this verse 11, it's talking about the physical, the mental sufferings. Right? Among the two sufferings, the mental and physical sufferings, here it is talking about the mental suffering.
근데 다들 손도 랑가 샘라 동아 쇼비스 내가 이제 샘주 투바에 내가 저자랑만 코에 다나 다카 말이 랑라 랑스 손도 왔어.
And so it says here, right, so when my mind falls prey to sufferings, it is surely the weapon of my one evil deed. Turn upon me for troubling the minds of others. From now on, I shall willingly take all sufferings upon myself.
다 네가 가르쳐서나 소주 샘나 땅가도 샘 끼고면도 산도 공로선 가지고 샘을 끼고면도 나도 샘 마지막 지냈더니 요즘 좀 뭐도 왔어. 그거 가지는데 소주 샘지 샘벽에 샘 뚫고 팀대부터 따서 샘 말해서.
And so sometimes we are not happy. That's our mind is, not happy. We feel very sad, or we feel, unhappy, and so forth. So that at that time, why we feel unhappy is because of, causing, because of troubling or disturbing others' peaceful minds.
근데 제가 다 가림 가르쳐는 다 그거 간가 다 소주 가는 랭이 있어요. 그러고 그 말을 나눠서.
And so, by thinking that, then one should think of taking all the sufferings, all the mental sufferings of other stimulants upon oneself.
양 배차디 네 배차디 가셔나 근데 다는 누가 말을 하나 나왔을 때 요사에서 와. 니는 어떻게 말이세요?
그것은 뭐라?
지금 있어.
동화서.
이제
우리 뜻대로 동화, 단에 동화 벌어놓은 거.
니는 다는 어떻게 말을 하나 나왔어.
주발에.
중요하다네. 누가 말을 하나 나왔어.
동화를 보여도 사람들이 직접션.
어떻게 다 대통령이 도도로 당가도 대파 두르고 당와이 나스 다른 거 릴라 안에 다 릴라도 맞아 다 셈라 아니 땡이 왕 거지 로모사와도 로모데와도 아니 셈 주데와도 아니 들이 용한테 다 가지고 있었나 아니 대지 재매를 좀 말해서 와.
And so, like when sometimes when we feel unhappy, when we feel sad or we feel our mind is disturbed, and so that is not happening without any cause and conditions.
그래도 다들 가와셔서나 다 제왕 한마 더 양치랑 세대 더 지나가라 와요 가봐야 지나가 몇십배 아니 다 셈나야 다 나중에 당신이 땡겨버려서.
And so that's not happening, without cause and conditions. So why is one experiencing that? That's the result of the negative karma one has created in the previous lives. In a life, when one was more powerful, or when one was not very well, and at that time one has caused or disturbed others in a peaceful mind, and it's because of that now one is experiencing this mental suffering.
그 때문에 삼삼치고 소소치 생발이 싸워야 매와 저가지 당보면봐 칼라사리 가리시나 조매봐 계속 가리시는 비보면 모두 가리면 가지는 생각도 용도 왔어.
So sometimes we feel unhappy, right? Unhappy, and our mind is not stable. Mind is disturbed, and no matter what we do, we don't find happiness. Even if we eat, we don't find any flavor in the food. Even if we hear, listen to the music, we don't find it pleasant to listen, and so forth. So our mind, at the time when our mind is disturbed, right?
이제 갑라 너도 이 말했어.
And also we couldn't fall asleep at that time.
Happen, sometimes mind's not happy, we don't understand that. Then we move there, move there, move there. What today is that? Today you will come ya, young Samson. Today you will come. Gang in your come. There's another you can doctor and hold up. They are actually your mind.
So at that time, some people they take drugs, to be able to fall asleep or to be able to feel happy. That's not good at all.
So today come ya, and the children check. 4 months per month, they won't go. You could always. How many? Don't bother with the Amjunian, and you can show penalty.
So at that time, you can either recite Om Mani Padme, then you will fall asleep easily, or you can listen to the chantings, like prayers, chanting prayers, and that will help you to fall asleep.
Because the syllabus is very devoted for the teaching, Dharma.
Devoted.
Devoted for the Dharma.
Devoted to the teachings.
When we do some, when we sit there, when we taught them, we fall asleep. We come there. What is the thought? You want the dark courage on that? That you do not know the Kaji, the Sabbath, you want the courage, you want to switch on to like that. Oh, Kuma, she loves one, within Pachi was.
And so when we feel unhappy like that, usually we blame to others, right? And so, this person said this person did that, therefore I feel unhappy.
And the thought taken to the tongue, the deep of Temarina, they charangi, that is not to do which is Yamana do protect the machine with Semla and Nasapoa. Or the legend of Ranka Gagging and Kamanyama, Pinchit, that Pinchit Pins the Jelly Java, Tomo Penza, the Midi and the Kansa Jen, and the Semji Tuba, and this Semba, that's Sema, Juana Suzu Pacheva. What the Liga, and the Yamana Pamaka Gang Laja Maniba, the Manibala Tele, and that he did that's all to Mungo this.
So here it is saying that that is the result of negative karma we have created by either fighting with our siblings, our parents, or not listening to the advice of our teachers, or or saying something bad to hurt the feelings of others. Of course, before we used to use the words, but nowadays you can also use the fingers to type, right, and say bad words to others. And so because of doing that, because of all these negative karmas that were created by not listening to to the advices of our parents and our teachers, or fighting with them and fighting with our friends and family and so forth. So because of that, then we're experiencing this suffering of being disturbed in our mind.
How about you guys fight that finger? In Tibetans, India, other Chinese, they fight the hand. In India they fight the women's the shoes.
Yeah.
They beat for us. Then Tibetan, this is very the man alcohol.
Fist.
Weapon.
Weapon. They hit this. I think they are here, we don't saw them, we just oh, they can talk. So like that, we do it like that. Then you don't need to tap also, you don't need to say then you do other person's hurt their mind. Now this time some condition. Maybe someone said, maybe you heard something, then condition, this is the condition, not real cause. The cause is really there. It's just and it doesn't
So when meet with the condition meets with the condition, then it ripens in the result.
Oh, tell the thought, tell you so you say, but you maybe come here. And the culture was not. Yeah, again, some town, and it's some town, and this was down the Semchi Kangi, sentiment with one chasa, and the Nanzi Taya, now they tell me, Mewacha, Suzu Sama Gawachi. They didn't go out there, some part on Semchi Kangana, now they didn't go out there, to which part on to the
And so then when happens, when this happened to us, and at that time like before, we should imagine, we should think about all the sufferings, all the mental sufferings that other sentient beings are going through, And then imagine taking all their sufferings in the form of black smoke and coming into you and destroying your negative karmas and your sufferings, and thereby you feel happiness. You feel happy, and that happiness you send in the form of white light towards all sentient beings, and then they imagine that they're feeling all happy, and so do this practice of taking the sufferings of others and giving the happiness to others, like that, for several minutes.
대리다 다네 좋대. 이마 대리도 좋대. 다지 수 카운트도 걸리가 요즘 sem주진지 했더니 다 내가 지금에 저쪽에 선도 담자는 거죠.
And so because one is going through all the sufferings, because of causing harm to others, causing or disturbing others' peaceful mind and so forth, and therefore now from now on one should think, one should make a promise not to create such kind of action that will cause others to be unhappy.
대리다 내마 소주고 대리가 sem주 재미가 sem주 쭉잡에 랭이면 존자대 단 걸로 가서 방 걸어와 다 제고는 수준도나 틀려 송삼삼당으로.
And so that will of the will of weapon that caused harm to others, now it is turning towards oneself and causing oneself suffering.
They run here, they go to other side, then come back to them for us. They all run. today by the Kadena Shambata Hijasa Kumtana, it is all
And so therefore, if one is able to have develop that mind of compassion and love towards others, then that the thought of causing harm to others or disturbing others' mind will never happen.
아니 가디나 쇼나 메사 선고래서 메사 공이 대사 이들와.
And if possible, one should always consider oneself lower than others. Considering oneself lower than others is the higher state.
대라고서 딱 봐주고 가르치는 거 그것은 대라고 말이더라.
So again, doesn't mean that whatever others do, you just bow down to them.
로저 특징은 와서 강도 서당 쪽에서 다니까 하면 되잖아. 서방도 좀 제발 좀 말라. 세다 손에 와.
So like it is said in the 8 verses of mind training. So whenever one is in a company with others, always consider oneself as the lowest, and by seeing others, superior, always train one's mind to see others superior.
먼저 가는 아버지가 강도 서당 쪽에 다니까 라 kind so trying to think trying to was.
But we are the opposite. We're doing the opposite, right? Whenever we're in company with others, we always try to think that ourselves is more superior than others.
Right? We think we are the best one. Whatever I say, whatever I think is good, right way. Therefore, he or she doesn't listen to me. He or she do all mistakes. We always complain us. Usually the Kadamba master said, always you respect for others. You always. If you do that, then you have no problem. Because we don't accept always that we say, well, I'm the best one, I know that. Also, particularly in this country, people doesn't like to say, I don't know. People say, I know. Well, today, I can't give it Gomba was a and the Jinamaga do not do not sing in Karo or Lenges and the Kina.
And so that's why one of the Kadamba masters, called known as Kumpawa, said that I'll be happy if I'm suffering. I'll be not happy if I'm happy. That's because he said, because if I'm suffering, then I'm exhausting the negative karmas. But if I'm happy, then I'm exhausting the matters. And then if I'm happy, then the delusions in my mind will increase. And so if you think that you are good, if you think you're good, then you feel that proud, the arrogant, thinking that I'm very good, there's no one better than me. So then you develop this pride or arrogance, right? And he said, I will not be happy if I'm praised, but I will be happy if I'm criticized.
된다 아니 다 용은 나자야 팽 그래서 다 나시고 저기 와 만져 팽이래스 매와 옛날에 랑게 랑게 다 하고 팽 그래서
So if I'm praised, then I will develop more more pride, right? More pride. But if I'm criticized, then I will see my faults.
나도 아버지 들어왔어 나도 맨날 막 떠나게 들어왔어
But we are the opposite, right? So we don't feel happy if we are criticized, but feel happy if we are praised.
if someone say you're doing wrong then we don't accept that he said why I did it wrong I do it that way 어떻게 된 건데 닦아든 게 예비신이들 다 로종 콜라야 shum이들 송소야 돼 내가 나도 또 주도가는 그대나지 축시지야다 아니 매사성야다 심지어 샴바는 이제 거기다 계시 모셔야 송부했어
So there are many methods, that is taught by these Kadapa masters, to tame your mind. But in short, always thinking about others, thinking, oneself in the lowest state, and being content, with whatever one has, and loving, and developing loving kindness and compassion towards others.
근데 다 나도 쇼로가 찍는 거 말이나 다 기실하고 주도면 뭐 해도 다 시에서 나도 배적 만들어도 테스트하면 말해서 말씀도 없어.
So we have gone through only one. We went through only one verse, but don't think saying that Geshe-la went through all the other nonsense and only covered one verse of actual text.
나도 또 파괴를 수수로 해야 돼. 다도 마모스와를 간가. 육사를 못해. 용사도 사실 지야 용으로 가다 다 되셔는 거예요. 난 늦어 이미가 되셔는 거로. 그러고
And so, because it's all related, with what we're talking about. So whatever we discussed and talked about, it's all related. So this is all the things that we talked about is to prove, is to prove what we said in this verse.
Also, the Western special. We read a lot of books that we don't know when we did practice, when, how. Like that term, they're all same. They talk about different texts, but same meaning. When we study, when we practice, this kind we have to think about all of them. Also they always mention the Guru Puja, the Laman pipe is very good. You can recite. Even if you don't recite all Guru Laman Chopa, but you can just start to, the Laman Pele. It's very, very good. They talk about Karuta.
So explains about all the teachings on the three scopes, the exchanging and equalizing self with others, and so forth.
Okay. Anyway, thank you. Like that.
Thank you, Geshe.
Any other questions? Some questions? Yeah.
Just one or two questions. In the beginning, you talked about motivation, determining if an action becomes positive or negative. What percentage of an action is determined by the motivation? What percentage do you think is influenced by the motivation that determines if it's positive or negative?
Just out of
100%.
Really? Wow.
When it is.
That's right. 가르에서는 이미 전생하고 가르에서는 아니 문화 노동 전생한테 들어 어렵게 연습 들어봐. 아니 그거야 연주나는 중방납자 아니 세 답시적이 그래서 대가는 샤접 삼바지 그 전에 그거 가르치면서 문화 노동 전에 중방납자서는 중방납자 세계 납자도 시비게 동아 코로나 테스트에 동아 되는 야와치게 동아 또 동아도 뭐고요 세관 때문에 아니 자주 생각했고 니지가 때문에 나는 좀 아니 딱 고타도 좋아했어요.
추다로.
그러니까 더 동의도 내 지금은 만나도 되지만 너 가지 상처 받으라 코 똥이 다 되는 거예요.
아까는 꿀롱도 다 야자가서 꿀롱을 하는 거였어.
그래서
꿀롱 매번 가서 되는 그냥 여사와 있는 여 자기로 하게 됐어. 야자가서 됐어 여 자기로. 꿀롱 사람에는 거의 여자는 차이 많아서 그렇죠.
되는 말이야. 되는 건 잡았어. 이 집이 겨워서 제와라 자식 자동을 지금 그만 그대로 그거 되는 말이야. 시장이 그런 걸 하래 그래서
So of course, I think Ishla didn't understand what you were talking about when he was mentioning about the percentage, of the motivation. So of course, that is very important part, in whatever actions we create. But again, sometimes without motivation, you can also create an action.
Yeah.
Right? So that action, even though you don't have motivation at all, but doesn't mean that doesn't become positive or negative at all. So even if you didn't have good motivation, but you happen to go around the stupa, then that becomes positive action, right? So you didn't have any motivation at all, but that becomes so for that action, for that positive action, there was no motivation at all, but still it's a positive. So in that case, then of course it doesn't depend on the motivation.
And memaya that do you 상제 좀 된데서 그렇다 기부시 된 비유처럼. I don't remember the name anyway. Maybe I can explain. Maybe we can say more time. One guy, he lost the whole his family. He's old. He went to the Sharpudra. Chindapache. His name is Chindapache. He lost his old families. Then he had nothing to, refuge. Then he went to the Sharpudra to, please can I become monk? The Sharpudra said, no, you're too old. Nothing benefit, like that, Then, he's very, lost hope, very sad. Then he's going somewhere. Then Buddha, of course, Buddha is, clairvoyance. He saw this person, Chindapachen. He has the they call it Tamacha the Kessel on Tone, and the telepen, the general option of the race. The nigger and the Tamacha the Kessel, the Nama, Java Mumbo, Ko Bushi Javalam, Body Chokamuchi Kanada, and the Chavatani Jode, and the Chukan, and Chudega, Kolaji Jami, Tiger, the Chavatan Kessel. There are then called Tamachi.
So the related story of that, marriage you can create by going around the stupa without even knowing about it, without any motivation. So there's this Kimda Pelchen, the householder Pelchen, and he lost everything, so he didn't have anything to do. Anywhere to go. So he went to the monastery and requested that he be allowed to become a monk. And then, so during those days, of course, these the senior monks, who will give you the permission to become monk, will see whether you have the merit to become monk or not. So through their clairvoyance, they can tell whether you have enough merit or not. So nowadays, nobody will know. Maybe it's okay, if you want to become monk, you can become monk. But those days, they will check whether you have merit to become monk or not. So if you don't have a merit, then it's just no point becoming monk, because you will not achieve liberation. So only if you can achieve liberation at that time, then they will allow you to become monk. So no point become monk, and so they will not give you the permission. And so Shariputra, when he looked at him and tried to use his clairvoyance to see whether he has a merit to become, become liberated or not, then he didn't see that merit. He couldn't find that he has any merit, and so then he denied. So he said, no, you cannot become monk. So. And then he was even more discouraged. Now even the monastery is not taking me. So he decided to go and kill himself, commit suicide. So jump down the cliff and kill himself. And when he was just walking towards that, then Buddha appeared in front of him. And then Buddha said, "What are you doing?" And he explained why he was trying to kill himself. And he says, "I don't have merit. I cannot become monk." And then Buddha said, "No, you have merit." So Shariputra can only see to a certain distance, but he cannot see all the way to the back of his many previous lives. And so Buddha saw that in many previous lives before, when he was born as an ant, he happens to be feeding himself on a cow dung, and then there was a flood at that time, and then the water came and carried the cow dung, where the ant was sitting and feeding himself. And so then the water happened to go around the stupa, and so the cow dung, went, followed the water, and it took the circle of the stupa, and then the ant happened to go through that too. So, and because of that, merit that he has created by going around the stupa, even without knowing at all, and so because of that merit, Buddha so that he can become monk.
와 들리다 들리게 지금 땅한도 지금 너와랑 주대장도 지금 나바 이름을 가리지는 너와 지금 도나 아니 된수 있으면 여기가 벌써 샤로 그래. 이제 들리지 주대 지금 좀 가지
And so that's the reason why these holy objects like the stupas are built outside. So whether you are Buddhist or not, whether you are human beings or not, even the animals can be happy to go around the stupa and then create merit that way, and then leave an imprint in their mind to meet with the Dharma in the future.
와
So
들리기
that's the
전에
reason why we have stupas outside.
와 들리기 전에 다 개와 사이면 시동다 개와 대화 제주 가르게 중국입니다. 근데 개와도 또 바꾸는다 시전 또다 그런 걸 알아요.
And so from that point, you can say that it doesn't depend entirely on motivation, but in general, there are some cases like that. But in general, motivation has a big hand in whether that action, that positive karma, becomes powerful or not.
Okay? Like that. Any other question? Okay, no questions, then we stop here. Chanting master. My job's finished, now your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.